Okay, so today I want to talk about a couple things. One being concealed carry with a pair of shorts and t-shirt, summer environment wise. And we're going to use an inside the pants holster. The weapon of choice today is going to be a personal protection size 1911. A lot of this information will work with other firearms, of course, but this will be specific to the 1911 single action. The first thing we always want to do when handling firearms, when we're not on the range and we're not firing, we are going to be dry firing quite a bit. We're going to be handling this firearm quite a bit. So obviously, the first thing we want to do is ensure the weapon is safe. So before you start anything that I'm going to show you today, the very first thing you're always going to do is remove the magazine, take the weapon off the safe, inspect the chamber visually, make sure that you have no round in the chamber, and still place the weapon on safe. Now with the 1911, it is carried in with a round in battery normally, so that safety should be an inherent muscle memory, always on. Every time that you holster that weapon, the safety is going to be on. As you come out of the holster and you're coming up to fire, that is when you disengage the safety as your finger moves to the trigger to fire. But for all of these drills today, we are going to ensure that the weapon is in fact empty. Okay, so today we are talking about concealed carry with a Colt 45 officer's model, or in this case, a Kimber Ultra Carry 2, both short barrel versions. This one takes a 7-round magazine, it's a 7+1. The Colt officers, same dimensions, actually the same magazine will fit. But the Colt magazine is 6+1. This is, of course, the 1911 style. One of the interesting things about the 1911 style is you do kind of have a point here on the grip that when you go to conceal carry, oftentimes will print. So you need to be a little cautious about that. Second thing is to make sure, of course, since it's a single action, safety is always on. And when that fits into the holster, inside the waistband with a clip running around, approximately 3 o'clock. You can carry this two ways. The most comfortable way is, of course, straight up and down, which gives you a very away from the body profile. But unfortunately, if you're wearing tight clothes, t-shirt and shorts, which is typical in southern climates, or in the summertime, tend to print right here where that point is that we were discussing. So if you're carrying a little extra weight here, you find that this is a little more difficult to conceal. It can simply be accommodated with a rotation around 30 degrees. You can go to an extreme depending on the size of this girth. Here you may need to go even farther. Somewhere right in there, I'll line up that point somewhere with the clip. That's probably closer to about 20 degrees. You'll see that that's actually very concealable for standing, walking around. So the other thing we're looking at is the holster itself. This particular one is an inside the pants holster for the strong side, and we know that because the clip orientates the weapon this way. The clip is going to be inside the pants. So the other thing about this clip, it is hinged at the bottom, which allows for a canted carry. If you have one that's fixed, you may have some printing problems back here. So I think it's important to have that. I tighten mine down. It's pretty snug, right about where I want it. So it's got a little bit of movement available as I'm moving around, but at the same time, it's generally going to be in the correct place. Another thing about holsters I'd like to talk about just for a second is you want one that fits the firearm very well. As you can see, that one does. It's actually molded around this particular model so that it's a very sure grip. This holster is not going to let go of this firearm if I don't want it to. At the same time, the draw is very, very smooth, and with just a little bit of force, it will pull free. One of the things you need to do while drawing this firearm from any holster is it should be a fairly quick motion and not a slow, drawn-out motion, which will have a tendency to let this clip ride up pretty high. So you don't want that. You'd rather it be a quick snap to release from the magazine, release from the holster itself, rather than a slow jerking motion, which will have a tendency to bring the holster with it. All right, so I've put the holster on, and as you can see, I'm wearing a belt. A lot of choices here. Obviously, the thicker the belt, the more likely it is that this clip is going to retain and it's not going to come off with it. If you have a very thin belt, you definitely run a risk of pulling the firearm and the holster together, which will render the firearm useless because you can't access the trigger. So make sure that your belt is indeed thick enough to grab this clip. And the only way you're going to know that is a lot of practice. So you need to draw that weapon a number of times to make sure that that holster is not coming with it. Your draw needs to be quick enough. Like I said, it needs to be more of a snap than a slow drag. But even with a slow drag, make sure that belt is wide enough and thick enough to grab a hold of the edge of this clip. The particular belt that I'm wearing is not excessively thick, but honestly, I modified this clip just a tiny bit, adding just a little harsher hook to guarantee that it is nice and secure. When you've got a good combination handgun holster and carry position, the last thing you want to do is just double check that you are not printing anywhere. You're going to need a full-size mirror. You're going to need to video record yourself spinning around. You're going to need somebody else to look at you. You're not going to be able to just look down and know that you're not printing anywhere. Then learn where that is. Your body needs to get used to that. You need to wear it that way so you can feel it, and then most importantly, feel if it's shifted out of position. Do not adjust that in public. Make sure you get somewhere private to move that around. One of the easiest ways to accidentally print is sitting. Be very careful when you sit down. So you want to test your position out, make sure that it's comfortable, but also move around some like you would if you're sitting in a restaurant to make sure that it's not going to shift or that the position that you've chosen doesn't actually print a little bit while you're moving around. Thank you very much.